Noam Chomsky's name has long been synonymous with fearless dissent. For decades, he was the intellectual godfather of the left, a man whose words cut through the smokescreens of power and laid bare the machinations of empire. To millions, he is a truth teller in a world of liars, a moral compass pointing unerringly toward justice. Yet beneath the mythology lies a reality far less flattering. Chomsky, for all his brilliance and rhetorical courage, is not the warrior his admirers imagine. He is a paper Spartan, armored in language, armed with critique, but never once stepping fully into the arena where the cost of conviction is real. Born December 7, 1928, in Philadelphia to a family steeped in Jewish intellectual traditions, Chomsky seemed destined for a life of the mind. His father, a respected scholar of Hebrew linguistics, filled their home with debate and books. By age 10, Noam was already writing political essays, railing against fascism's rise in Spain. As a teenager, he frequented anarchist bookstores and absorbed radical ideas. But even in those early years, his engagement with activism remained mostly theoretical. While his contemporaries took to picket lines and organized labor strikes, Chomsky preferred the quiet safety of study. This pattern defined his adult life. After earning his PhD and securing a post at MIT, he revolutionized linguistics with his theory of universal grammar. It was a staggering achievement, placing him at the pinnacle of academic thought. But Chomsky's true fame came not from science, but from politics. In 1967, he unleashed The Responsibility of Intellectuals, a scathing essay that accused Western scholars and journalists of complicity in U.S. imperialism. The Vietnam War raged, and Chomsky's words electrified the anti-war movement. He spoke at teach-ins, signed petitions, and was arrested during a Pentagon protest. But unlike Daniel Ellsberg, who risked prison by leaking the Pentagon Papers, or Angela Davis, who faced trial for her activism, Chomsky's career and freedom were never truly threatened. MIT, initially wary, never revoked his position. His dissent was sharp but sheltered. As the years passed, Chomsky's critiques became more expansive. He dissected U.S. foreign policy with surgical precision, chronicling coups, bombings, and sanctions from Latin America to Southeast Asia. His 1988 masterpiece, Manufacturing Consent, co-authored with Edward Herman, exposed the corporate media's role as a propaganda arm for elites. The book became a touchstone for critics of mainstream narratives, cementing Chomsky's reputation as a radical sage. Yet even then, cracks appeared. On Palestine, for example, Chomsky walked a curious line. He condemned Israel's occupation and criticized U.S. support, yet firmly supported Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. He rejected calls for a one-state solution and distanced himself from the BDS movement. This reticence stood in stark contrast to Edward Said, a contemporary and fellow intellectual who spoke boldly for Palestinian liberation and paid a heavy price in vilification and death threats. Chomsky's position was nuanced, perhaps, but nuance can also be a refuge for those unwilling to burn bridges. On Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks and arguably one of Chomsky's intellectual heirs, his support was similarly tepid. While Chomsky occasionally called for Assange's release, his advocacy lacked urgency. Assange, like Ellsberg before him, put everything on the line to expose state secrets. Chomsky, meanwhile, continued to give lectures and publish books from the comfort of academic institutions. The contrast was jarring. Even his personal entanglements betrayed the image of a fearless truth-teller. In 2023, it emerged that Chomsky had met Jeffrey Epstein multiple times after Epstein's conviction for child sex offenses. When questioned, Chomsky snapped, "It's none of your business." For a man who had spent his life demanding transparency from others, the hypocrisy was glaring. His defenders rushed to frame these meetings as innocuous, discussions about university funding or geopolitics. But the optics were damning. Chomsky's entire career embodies the paradox of academic radicalism. His critiques are devastating, his intellect unmatched, but his activism never transcended the theoretical. Spartans are forged in fire. Chomsky never left the ivory tower. Unlike Martin Luther King Jr., who marched in the streets and faced assassination for his beliefs, or Nelson Mandela, who endured decades in prison, Chomsky remained insulated from the consequences of power. He inspired movements but never built them. He diagnosed imperial rot, but never wielded the scalpel. He was the wise elder at the edge of the battlefield, never the warrior in its heart. His fans might argue that Chomsky's role was never to lead movements, but to inform them. Yet true Spartans live their convictions beyond the page. They understand that knowledge without risk is mere commentary. Chomsky, for all his fiery words, rarely moved beyond the realm of safe dissent. This pattern extended even to his response to global events. On China's Uyghur detention camps, he offered only tepid analysis, emphasizing U.S. hypocrisy over the human rights abuses themselves. On Russia's invasion of Ukraine, his comments often centered on NATO provocation. A valid point, but one that seemed to downplay the agency of smaller nations caught between great powers. Chomsky's intellectual discipline is undeniable. His ability to analyze and articulate complex power structures remains formidable even in his 90s. But discipline and brilliance alone do not make a Spartan. Courage does. Sacrifice does. Chomsky's life lacks these crucial ingredients. By the time he entered his twilight years, Chomsky had become an institution unto himself, a perennial presence on the lecture circuit, a staple of leftist reading lists, a sage quoted in protests he never attended. He became, in effect, the embodiment of a certain kind of radicalism. Erudite, safe, endlessly critical, yet never personally endangered. This is the paradox of Noam Chomsky. He spent a lifetime analyzing power, but rarely confronting it in a way that threatened his own. He revealed the machinery of empire, but avoided placing himself beneath its crushing gears. He is a paper Spartan, brilliant, disciplined, but ultimately untested. Where Spartans once stood shoulder to shoulder in defense of their people, Chomsky stood alone behind a lectern, critiquing those who wielded the spear without ever picking one up himself. His legacy is not one of betrayal, but of limits, a reminder that even the sharpest minds can falter when faced with the demand for action. Order the Spartan Mindset today and embark on your journey toward becoming the leader your world needs. Let your struggles forge you into a warrior of character and resolve. The Spartan Mindset provides a comprehensive and actionable guide to personal development and resilience. Available now for just $19.99. Purchase your copy from the links in the description box below and on this channel's homepage. Because your future begins with the right mindset. The Spartan Mindset.